From Howick High School in 2005. He was the deputy head boy of the school and he was the captain of Alamans House. He achieved half colours for dramatics, was a member of the Gavel Club and an RCL member. He was captain of the first rugby team, captain of the first hockey team, and he achieved full colours for both of these codes. Jeff has worked as a journalist for 18 years in various roles for regional and national titles across the country. He holds a National Diploma in Journalism from the Durban University of Technology. He cut his teeth as a reporter on the Mercury's night desk, working full-time whilst completing his studies. He has held senior roles at the Sunday Tribune, the Witness News 24 and the Sunday Times, TimesLIVE and TimesLIVE. Jeff is a multi-award winning journalist with interests in investigative and data journalism and is especially interested in issues pertaining to crime and justice, with a specific focus on data journalism. In 2021, Jeff co-authored the book 8 Days in July, Inside the Zuma unrest that set South Africa alight. He is a 2 times winner of the prestigious Taco Kuiper Award for Investigative Journalism and a recipient of the National Award for Courageous Journalism in 2024. When I arrived at the school, I remember Ms. Hislop speaking fondly of Jeff. She followed his career closely after he matriculated, and I can tell the audience that she was so pleased when I informed her shortly before her passing that he was going to be this year's guest speaker. Thank you, Mr. Wicks, for taking the time from your very busy life to share this evening with us. And I'd now like to call upon you to address the audience.
Good evening, all. My name is Jeff Wicks, and I'm an investigative journalist working for News 24. When I was thinking about coming and talking here, it came to my attention that Gayton McKenzie, our newly installed Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, used to do the school speaking circuit. He is both a convicted criminal and a politician, so you could have done worse than me. So, thank you for having me. I'm honored to stand before all of you tonight, and it's a humbling experience, most especially because the last time I was in this room, I was a much younger man. 20 years ago, I was sitting down there, where you all are now. I was lucky to spend my childhood in Howick, and I have fond memories of the school, and I walked the same halls that you do now. I remember the sound of a bell that used to be there, and from years of pure repetition, I can still remember the words of the school song. To the departing cohort matric class of 2024, and those here tonight who will follow in their footsteps in the years to come, I'd like to share with you some insights and lessons that I've learned throughout my career, which I hope will inspire you and guide you as you step out into the world. My start as a journalist was here, at the school, in the middle wing, where the English classrooms used to be. Academically, I was bang average, and I was worried coming to talk here tonight that there would be no one who remembered me in the staff complement, but there are a few faces who are well au fait with my spotty academic record. But that notwithstanding, all of you sitting here should strive to be better than I was. Inasmuch as I struggled, I had a particular affinity for history and English, most especially the writing, and it was a welcome break from the disaster that was maths and science. I was in grade 11 and I was undecided about what my next chapter, university, was going to look like. I'd considered law, but I wasn't completely taken by it. And a teacher here suggested that I read a book called The Bang Bang Club. There is a movie, it's terrible, read the book. The Bang Bang Club is a true telling of feverish political violence during the late 80s in the thrall of apartheid, and it follows 4 photojournalists of the time. Kevin Carter, who took the iconic picture of a vulture stalking a starving child in Northern Africa, Greg Marinovich, who won Pulitzer Prizes for his work, Ken Oosterbrook, and Jao Sola. It's a wild story about their brushes with death, getting amazing pictures that no one else could, and literally putting it all on the line to bring people the truth. That truth was the repression of apartheid and the subjugation of millions of people. In my mind, there are few more nobler causes. I was completely taken, and it sounded like an appropriate amount of adrenaline, and I would likely never be locked up in an office. The teacher that set me on that path was Penny Hislop, a consummate educator who was widely loved, and justly so. She had an innate ability to see the potential in those sitting in front of her. She knew that some required the carrot and others the stick. I was one that required the stick. I will be eternally grateful for the way that she shaped my life. The last time I saw her, I had been visiting in Howick and I'd wanted to get her a copy of a book that we'd written. The encounter was brief, but it's my sincere hope that she knew the impact she'd had on me. May she rest in peace. I've worked as a journalist for nearly 2 decades, and I started my career as a cub reporter on the night shift at the Mercury, and then moved from place to place. Constant in that has always been my beat, and that beat was crime. I think I had a special affinity for it for some reason. It wasn't quite what I'd envisaged after moving through the pages of the Bang Bang Club. The adrenaline was there, but far more sporadic. But being able to tell people stories and try and affect change in their lives was fulfilling and a real privilege. I knew early in my career that I would struggle to do any other work. Because of the global pressure on the media industry, newsrooms are small, and by that virtue, the reporters that newsrooms do have end up doing a little bit of everything. And this job has taken me to amazing places. I've been on assignment with our soldiers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I've stood in Israel, a country now at the center of what promises to be a global conflict. And I've covered earthquakes in Nepal. A photographer and I got stranded in a village so small it wasn't even on the map in Mozambique in the aftermath of a cyclone, when the 2 motorbikes carrying 5 of us broke down. I imagine an image of one motorbike which was repaired, towing the other stricken motorbike with 5 people on board, both of them in thigh-high mud for hours. To get to Mozambique to cover that story, we'd hitched a ride on a 60-year-old Soviet-era cargo plane, and we took our seats in the kitchen because there were no seats. The moment the crew of the 4 Ukrainian pilots sealed the doors, they peeled off their neat flight suits to reveal coffee-stained vests and shorts. Whilst we were in the air, what we thought was smoke started billowing from one of the galley walls. I started praying to a Russian Orthodox effigy of Mary, which had been nailed to the wall. It turns out the steam was for an antique kettle for their coffee to stain their vests. I even once flew to Dubai for a 19-minute interview with Roger Federer. But for all the uplifting assignments, there are those which test your faith in humanity, and those which place your life in danger. When our former president was jailed in July of 2021, huge swathes of this country were rendered lawless and set ablaze. Lives and livelihoods were lost. We worked around the clock for days on end, covering the violence. With my beautiful wife, also a journalist, we covered the looting and decimation of central Johannesburg. We were there for the first murder of the day, security guards in Piwe and Ndawonde, and we were there as bullets flew in both directions for days afterwards. We've covered endless days of sporadic violence set in motion by a xenophobic hatred that still grips our society. We have had front row seats to the displacement of thousands of people because of this. Watching someone weep over the body of a murdered loved one, or watching the broken facial expression of a shopkeeper standing in the middle of a wrecked and looted room will leave indelible marks on a man. Telling these stories of crime and violence has given me a sense of what a man can do to another man, what evil he's capable of. It gives you the unavoidable impression that evil does exist. 4 years ago, I joined the investigations team at News 24. In our office, in the corner of our Johannesburg newsroom, 5 of us sit, 4 journalists and an editor. In this room is more than a century of experience in journalism combined. We all have different focus areas. One journalist focuses on our beleaguered state-owned enterprises, another on water affairs because of the hundreds of thousands of South Africans who are victims of a legacy of service delivery failures 30 years into our democracy. My beat is one that should not exist today. I look at organized crime, the criminal underworld, and targeted assassinations. The common thread in all of the work that we do, channeling all those years of expertise and experience, is to try and expose corruption. Corruption is the bedrock of many of the social ills we all face today. This is a scourge that has grown so endemic in our society that state money is stolen faster than it can be recovered. That's no surprise considering the state spending budget is north of R1 trillion every single year. I have been unfortunate to see the true cost of corruption, beyond those who suffer when money for water infrastructure, electricity or roads is diverted to pay for sports cars for the politically connected. I have seen that corruption is paid for in lives. On the 23rd of August 2021, a woman named Babita Deokaran was shot 12 times as she pulled into her driveway at her home in Johannesburg. She was an accountant who worked for the Provincial Department of Health, and for more than 3 years since then, I have been focused on trying to unravel what led to her death. It has, without a shadow of a doubt, been the most challenging story to tell of my entire career. I, like many others, were convinced that her murder was no robbery or hijacking, but rather she had been eliminated for an intended purpose. 2 weeks after her killing, I managed to convince her brother to meet with me. He'd blown me off several times and tried to divert me to a family spokesperson, even though all I said was that we needed to talk and that I wasn't looking for quotes. I eventually cajoled him into meeting me on the promise that he would have to say nothing and simply listen to what I had to say. I told him that I believed that his sister's murder was an injustice that no one should be able to abide. I told him that I believed he and the public needed answers. I promised him that as long as there was breath in my chest, I would follow the story. I would work until it was done, and I would not just chase a headline. That work has been the last 3 years of my career. We revealed that the police had covered up crucial evidence in her murder case, likely because someone with a badge somewhere had been paid off. We revealed that 3 weeks before her murder, she flagged 850 million rands worth of dodgy payments from a hospital and put the brakes on 100 million rand more that was about to flow out of bank accounts in a monthly pay run. Using her work, we unraveled what we now know as a 3 billion rand tender extraction syndicate and unmasked all of the tenderpreneurs who used a hospital's money to pay for holidays, cars, mansions, and girlfriends. The central injustice in the tale of Babita Deokaran is that she had to die for us to push on with her work. We took what got her killed and pushed it into the public view so that it could never be ignored or covered up again. By doing so, we assumed the same danger that she did. During the production of the story, I was warned that what I was doing was going to get me hurt, and I was warned that what I was doing was going to get me killed. The same people who had taken her out were trying to protect their revenue streams, and we were threatening that. When we exposed links to politicians and the president's own nephew, we were threatened again. I traveled with a bodyguard and I fortified my home. When I drove to work, I did so in a bulletproof vest. I leaned heavily on sleeping pills and anxiety medication to counteract my fears of what could possibly be. It was not exactly the Bang Bang Club. The fear and anxiety was constant and latent. The threat wasn't an easily identifiable crowd you could move away from, but rather every possible assassin on the drive to work, or walking through a mall, or shopping for groceries, or walking the dog. When I first joined the investigations team, I was doing a project on a tobacco industry hit squad. Those people are moneyed and are not to be trifled with because they're dangerous, and I was naturally somewhat worried. I'd been sitting talking with a man named Johan van Lochrenberg. Those of you who read the news will recognize the name. He was once a top investigator of the illicit economy at SARS. He was driven out of the institution during the state capture period and his life was ruined. He, much like Babita Deokaran, is someone who has literally given everything for doing the right thing. I was telling him about my safety concerns, which in hindsight seemed quite light. And what he said in response stuck with me. He said, sometimes we do not choose our paths, but rather we are chosen for them. And that's something that I now tell myself when I'm scared now. Because what would the cost be if we did not tell the stories of Babita Deokaran, what she died for? How would that cheapen and nullify her memory and her sacrifice? To the departing class of matrics, those in the lower grades who are up next and those who are being bestowed prizes tonight, I was asked to impart something, that will stand you in good stead as you embark on this next chapter. The story of my career and the message that I want to give you, I hope will inspire you in some way. But I also want to give you the gift of a reality check about the world that you're about to venture into. It does you no favors the thinking that this is an entirely friendly place. My first hope for all of you is that you'll work hard. It's a virtue that I have always coveted and something I try and impress upon young journalists when they come into this industry, that nothing great was ever achieved by keeping office hours. I'm lucky to have the job that I do, and I truly believe it's a vocation. I believe I was called to do this work. And I'm in the privileged position of trying, not always successfully, of holding those in power to account and pushing what is hidden into the light. The nice thing about effort and enterprise when it comes to hard work is that it transcends your task. Put all your efforts into your studies. Know that you determine your success and you will be the ones to surmount any obstacles that you may face. If it was easy, then everyone would do it. You are the ones at the tiller and there's no such thing as good luck. Luck is the intersection between opportunity and effort is the operative word. My second wish for you is that you'll be active citizens. Our reality is one of high unemployment. If all of you in this room were job seekers, half of you would be returning home tonight empty-handed. Take an interest in your communities, volunteer for projects, uplift those around you. Apathy is a curse, and if you go along for the ride, you may not be happy when you arrive at the destination. Voter turnout is perilously low for the youth. So take an interest in politics. Know that those machinations guide our society, and be servants of our democracy by taking part and electing people who are there to serve and not serve themselves. Read the news, please. Not only because it keeps me working, but because you cannot be a passenger in life. You need to understand the world around you if you're ever going to be able to affect change in it. We hand this task now over to you. We rely on you and we vest our hopes in you. My final wish for you is that you'll strive to always do the right thing. This is a relatively abstract concept, but it applies to many facets of our lives. Report wrongdoing when you see it. Stand up against injustice. Don't film the fight. Break it up. Know that often doing the right thing is also the hardest thing. It requires a fortitude, though, that you all have within you. We hand you the task of being the change that will realize the potential of the magnificent country that we live in. This task is now yours. It will be the smallest acts of good, kindness and uprightness that will turn the tide. It's a collective responsibility that we all must embrace. Take up this task knowing that others have sacrificed their lives for doing the right thing, and because of the price they have paid, the cost on you will not be as steep. Thank you for listening to me tonight. Congratulations to all the recipients of awards, and to the leaving cohort, I wish you good luck and all of the best.